Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to the track that need not an introduction. Hello everybody, my name is Nick Amon, and I am joined alongside by Mr. Simon Bauer. Simon, how have you been?
Hello, good evening. I've been wonderful. Hope the same goes for you, and the same goes for the viewers, and the same goes for the drivers and anyone else. And it's good to be at Spa. One of my favorite tracks, one of probably the community's favorite tracks. What do you think?
Definitely my favorite track of all time, hands down. I know that the online public lobbies might have a little something different to say depending on who's in it, but yeah, overall a very good track.
Absolutely, and we've got a super sprint coming today. So if the carnage that we saw last time wasn't quite enough for you, I'm sure we'll see a little more today.
Well, we don't go green until after the hairpin, so thankfully we'll get to hold off until the next go round. But then again, Raidillon, Eau Rouge, Raidillon, and even the Camel Straight causes a couple of issues for people.
Oh yeah, starting through Eau Rouge isn't as straightforward as it seems.
No, especially
I've
when
been
you're
watching the
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
All right, I've been watching the AP splits, and it was absolutely amazing to watch. It was a little bit of carnage, but mostly it was a lot of just amazing racing. So I'm looking forward to this.
Well, I haven't had a chance. I've been kind of wrapped up in some things, we'll just say. But I'm definitely ready for tonight's race. And speaking of something I'm ready for, we have a new addition here to the EU team, Rombouts. I'm assuming that's how that's pronounced. It is Dutch after all, and well, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I don't think Dutch is actually a real language. But the Pack Racing Club Burvey, I gotta say, that is a very good livery.
Absolutely.
Huge fan of that.
Let me make your stream a tiny bit bigger so I can get a slightly better look. Absolutely. Yeah, I like it. The Honda lends itself well to some strong liveries. Mm-hmm. It doesn't lend itself well to really artistic liveries where you put proper pictures or something on it, but that is very well executed with the Pac-Man.
Absolutely. So last week's winner, Mullard, from P2, is not here this afternoon, so that'll be gonna leave that top spot up for the taking. Players to note: Hudson, of course, getting that podium position. He has not put a lap in just yet. He has gotten an out lap, so he's got to work on that flying lap. And then Vinogradov is currently sitting down in 15th without a time as well. So it'll be interesting to see where those drivers end up. Looking at the Pro-Am category is Dombrowski's, Tully, and Partez, who were on top of their game there. Partez not here as well. Dombrowski's are actually watching at the moment. And Hudson already on top of the timing sheets, a 2:17.78 here in free practice. Tully is in 4th at the moment with a 2:19.077. Then amateur class, it was Fredrickson. And then the Z-Naker pairing of... they're actually not here, so amateur class kind of up for the grabs right now, but some pretty strong times so far.
Absolutely, and we have an optimum track. Not sure what the track is going to be like in qualifying, but there's a decent chance it's going to be optimum as well. We're at 22 degrees ambient, 29 tracks, so relatively average temperatures. So we could, dare I say, even see maybe some 16s in quali today.
Well, we could. Again, this is Spa, so the weather can change in pretty much an instant.
That is true.
Yeah, that'll be something to hopefully look forward to. It should be noted last week, so Chris Vining right now is in the server. He's done a couple of laps, has not gotten a clean one through. He managed to pick up fastest lap last week as well as pole position. Obviously, he had that start, or that touch at the start from Mullard, and that brought him all the way down and fought his way back to 7th. But with Mullard not being here, Vining might perhaps be looking to maybe bounce back from last week's shenanigans.
Well, Muller was certainly not the only one putting up a fight against Vining, but to be fair, can we say anyone put up a real proper fight against Vining? Because he was miles ahead in qualifying. Only took until the race, until the first lap disaster for him, where he tumbled down the order and then had to have a very painful and not all that clean fight back through the field.
That's true.
But
Yep.
if you can bring the same amount of pace that he did last time, I'm thinking we can definitely see some 16s from him. The Honda is a strong car here.
Absolutely.
We've seen Vining is an absolutely rapid driver, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Well, the closest person in a Honda right now to that 16 is Rambouts with a 218.1. So getting down to a 16 is definitely going to be a challenge. And I would like to just take a quick moment and actually give a congratulatory statement to Chris Vining, who has actually qualified for the VRS Pro Series. So that'll be starting up in November. So best of luck to him. I just thought that's something we should mention.
Beautiful. Good to see some Honda representation.
Absolutely.
I say as I don't know if he actually is driving the Honda in the VRS series.
Doesn't matter, he probably will. And we should also give a huge shout out very quickly to this series sponsor, Simrigs. If you're looking to upgrade your rig with whatever it may be, pedals, wheels, maybe some gloves, maybe some socks, maybe something else entirely different, Simrigs has got you covered. One of the largest suppliers in all of Australia and New Zealand. And if you're like me or Simon and you happen to live outside those borders, well, you can hit them up, email them, and, well, they'll get something sorted out for you. But again, we thank them. We head back out here to track. 3 minutes to go, and it's Hudson on top right now with that 17.785. No one's even gotten close to it.
We did see Hudson was definitely a contender for the win last time. He has some solid pace. He wasn't quite up there in qualifying with the absolute fastest in the field, but he did bring some solid pace and especially some really, really impressive strategy in the race to almost get that P1 spot.
Just not enough time, it seems like. Maybe some unfortunate run-ins as well, especially with how, I guess, short you could say Alton Park is, especially with the pit stops coming through and everyone getting jumbled around.
That's absolutely. Or maybe he's just a stronger driver in the race than in qualifying.
Quite possibly. We'll have to wait and see, though. Spa is a very difficult track, I would say, especially when the rain starts coming down.
Yeah, qualifying is always especially difficult at Spa, since we have the normal length of qualifying today, but the track is so much longer than any other track in ACC. So you basically get fewer laps as it is in qualifying, and then Spa is also, of course, one of those tracks where it's relatively easy to invalidate your lap, especially at Rouge Raidillon, going a little bit wide. Sometimes you don't even notice it, you're going off track, but you see that red time popping up in the top left and you get angry at yourself that you've wasted another lap of those few that you have in the first place. So a lot of the time at Spa, if you manage to actually invalidate a few laps and go late into quali without actually having set a valid lap, then you might come to a point where you actually just take it easy. Just make sure, let me just get any lap in. Let's not push it too far, let's not risk anything. So it's gonna be probably a few drivers out there today who will not put absolutely everything into qualifying, since it's more important to just get a lap together than to push it to the limit and then perhaps risk it a little too much and go off.
Yeah, especially down after you go into what is I dub as no-name corner. That's another turn. You can really go wide on exit because you have that sort of green AstroTurf that you can work with. And, you know, at first you usually just think, oh, I have to stay within the white lines, but then you realize, oh, you got a little extra space to work with, and then, like you said, you start pushing and pushing and pushing, and then before you know it, you know, you're looking at an invalid lap, like you said. So this is especially going to be a tight qualifying session. And the thing is, like you said, with fewer laps, there's fewer laps to really get those tires and brakes up to temperature.
Absolutely. And the no-name corner we were talking about, it's such an awkward corner as it is. It's downhill and slightly off camber. So it's very, very easy to go a little wide, even when you're not intending to. That's definitely ruined plenty of my qualifying laps. Even in the race, it's not a particularly easy corner to get used to. But then there's very few corners around Spa that you could at all call easy. So it's going to be a challenge for the drivers today. It's going to be a pleasure for us to watch, hopefully.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So we get to the end of free practice here. Drivers are just getting their last laps in. It's Hudson on top. Actually, as I say that, it's Vinogradov who comes in with a 2:17.545. So that pushes Hudson down. And Rambouts will also be pushed down another position. Dombrowski's was in that podium position, but like I said, pushed down by the Russians. So Dombrowski's will miss out on that top 3 FP1 practice, or the 3 practice times by about 3/10. And we move forward to quali, and we're going to see what these guys have in store for us.
It's a little bit cooler. The track is only fast right now, but decent chance it's going to go up to optimum as quali goes on. What I can tell you is towards the end of that practice session just then, we did see that in 30 minutes after the end of the practice session, it was going to start raining. So rain is absolutely not out of the picture. Right now in qualifying, looks like it's going to stay perfectly dry. In 10 minutes and 30 minutes, all still dry, but these 2 races that we have today, we'll see. Could definitely mix things up.
Yeah, and surprisingly, what would be considered a very early qualifying session, 9 a.m. in-game time. Normally we see qualifying sessions around, what, like 2, maybe 1 o'clock?
Yeah, something around that, in OR especially. But these slightly cooler temperatures, 18 ambient, 19 track temps, that's pretty cool. That's definitely gonna give way to probably some pretty blistering times. As long as the track goes up to optimum. Even on the fast track, I think we could get some solid times, but I'm hoping for things to go to optimum so we can really see the absolute maximum of grip and those cars on the absolute limit.
Just have to wait and see. We had a couple of late joiners here. Ivan Cairns, Odin, Myzoria, and Andreas Zenaker. So one of the brothers is here for the time being. Maybe probably is the other half is sort of out and about in the world, whatever the case may be. But we wait for these first few times to come in. It'll be Zelmansky that will sort of get us going here in qualifying session to set the bar. But you know, you look at the drivers who are behind this Ferrari, and that's some pretty tough competition to beat.
Sure. Who are your cards on for qualifying?
Oh boy.
Let's make things a little interesting.
if we're going off of FP1, like I say, like this is another free practice. If we go off of practice, Vinogradov definitely, he is in the McLaren, a very strong car here, along with the Honda. The only other Honda was, or the only high-rated Honda rather, was Rambouts, one of the debutants here in the series. So it'd be between those 2 for pole if I'm being realistic, even Hudson as well. So yeah, any of those 3, I guess, would be my top picks, because they're all very, very close to each other in times.
Okay, solid stuff. I'm gonna mix it up a little, and I'm gonna say Michaels P3, Vinogradov P2, Vining P1.
Ooh, okay.
That's gonna be my prediction. We'll see which one comes true, or if neither of them come true, and we have some wild stuff. Maybe a Pro mixing it up in the top 3. We'll see.
Well, with Vining in the Honda, he definitely has a very solid chance. The Ferrari as well with Szymanski is a very good choice here as well. So when you get onto this Kemmel Straight, you'll really see those cars with that high acceleration and top end start to shine. You know, other cars that maybe have to rely more on slipstream will slowly lose out.
Sure, but interestingly enough, I can't exactly tell you which split it was. It was one of the AP splits where the Porsches were an absolutely almost dominant force.
Really?
Now, surely not 100% because of the Porsche itself, but because of the drivers that were driving it. But the Porsche, even though it's not among the absolute best cars around Spa, I believe it is absolutely possible to be up there and fight for the win in the Porsche.
Well, the only...
And that said, it's possible to fight for the win in any car, but of course some of them have a slight advantage at different tracks.
That's true. We only have 2 Porsches here tonight, Bonnefoy and Schaap, the only 2 drivers in that German manufacturer. Everyone else, again, opting for the McLaren, the Hondas, Ferraris are pretty abundant, BMWs as well, Aston Martins, a couple of Mercedes even. But I don't think we see anything else. Of course, we do have our patented Chevrolet safety car. But, you know, we can't let that one out on track because, I mean, the race would be over, like, immediately.
Well, I believe we did have a safety car in one of the AP splits, so it's definitely not impossible. And it does take a good chunk of the race away, having such a long lap that they have to drive under safety car conditions. But, man, if it's necessary, it's gotta happen.
Yeah, well, we get here with Zelmansky at the end of his lap, so we'll see just what the starting line is for the rest of these drivers as he goes through the bus stop chicane. And across the line, the time here is looking to be, if I had to bet on it, well, 2 minutes. A 2-minute 21.7 is the start of this battle for pole position, and that immediately gets bested by Dombrowski's a 2:18.85, and well, we should be seeing all these other times coming in here very shortly, although some drivers delayed their outlap, surprisingly, so that'll switch things up. Parfait is in P4 right now, 23.9, and Hudson is very close to breaking down that 2:17 barrier. It's got a 2:18.1 at the moment.
Sure, it's gonna be best if you leave your fastest lap out till the late part of qualifying, since it is only fast right now. There's a good chance the track is gonna go optimum at some point, and even if it doesn't, we're still gonna see a little bit of track evolution within that fast window. So maybe a few drivers out there are just waiting until the latter stages of qualifying, so they're gonna can go out, just use one tire set instead of coming in for a second one. But we'll see. And I'll tell you what, I'm remembering what we did last season at Indianapolis. Little track guides, following one of the cars around the track and giving the viewers a little view of the track. So if you wanna pick someone out to go on board with, I'll gladly guide you through the track.
Sure. Brian Cuthbert's is the head of your chariot, and well, walk us through
you're a man. So we've already gone through La Source, very slow corner, first gear corner, and it's already all going too fast. We're going through Eau Rouge. It's an iconic corner for a good reason. It's just barely flat in any car, although different setups are gonna make things different. So sometimes you're gonna have to lift just a little. Then going on to the straights, long straight, good slipstream potential. Going into La Source, down to second gear most of the time. Then through the left-hander, not going quite to the outside of the track to set up for, forgot the name of that corner. You're gonna shift up to third gear in the middle of the corner. Then we go through Bruxelles, a second gear corner, very long drawn out corner that at the exit goes downhill. So the exit is actually pretty tricky to get rear tire grip. Then the really awkward corner, No Name. Second or third gear, depends on the car. Slightly downhill, slightly off camera, so really tough. Pouhon, one of the fastest corners on the track. Going down to third or fourth gear, whichever one, depends on your car. And then about halfway through you start accelerating again, about 220 kilometers an hour on the exit. Then going to do Piff Puff, one of my favorite corner names out there. One of the relatively simple corners on the track, probably second gear in the first corner, third gear in the second corner. Then this right-hander that prepares us for Stavilo and onto the back quote-unquote straights. This right-hander can be flat, but it's going to be difficult to make sure you don't go a little bit wide. And now this, I'll call it a straight, but it certainly isn't a straight. We're going through Curb Paul Frere, is this left-hander right here, and then the really important one, Blanchiment. Easily flat in any car, but it's very easy to go a little bit too close to the curb and dump yourself. It's also not easy to follow a car through there. And then final corner of the track, bus stop chicane, slowest corner, down into first gear, quickly to the left again, and then try to get as good of an exit as possible. Slightly uphill, so it's not completely easy, but there we go. That's a full lap. That was pretty chaotic, but it was fun.
It's very, very good. Very good stuff there, Simon. And actually, you just commentated over Cuthbert's improvement right now. He's into the 18s with an 18.9.
And what do we have at the top of the times? A 2:17.3 from Vining, while the track is still only fast. That is a very, very solid lap for a non-optimum track.
Yeah, it's got a 4/10 gap down to Rumbouts, and Simon Ippolito is currently starting another lap. He was going pretty slow before the bus stop chicane, looking like probably trying to get a bit of a gap to the car in front. He's sitting P11 at the moment with a 2:20.35. The highest Mercedes currently is Hudson in P number 4 with a, I just lost it, with a 2:18.19. So Hudson is close to breaking down the 17 barrier. Vining, though, does have a lot of work to try to get the 2:16. I feel like if we see it, we may see it in the race, although I wouldn't be too surprised if he picked it up in qualifying.
Yeah, we'll see. In the chat, Matteo Abbes is saying, Forza Ippolito. Probably supporting his countrymen there.
Of course.
The chat is popping off a lot, and I've missed most of it, unfortunately. So hello to everyone. Good evening to everyone in the chat. Sorry if we miss a few of those messages while going through quali.
Does happen. We've got a lot on our plate here in the booth. Looking a little bit around the grid right now. Let's see. Andreas Sienaker, P14, 2141 for him. I'm sure I think he switched up his color scheme. Actually, no, he didn't. Because I believe, yeah, he's green and his brother is red. So, for him, P14 right now, third highest amateur class driver. The highest is actually Fredrickson, P7, a 2:18.58.
That is an impressive time for an amateur driver. And he is in the pits, apparently done with his quali. Just like Hudson, just like Barlow, a few drivers already in the pits, even though there's still plenty of time to start another lap.
Yep, but based on, usually where you are, you can assume that some of these drivers may have gone a bit wide after, say, about 2 minutes and 20... I usually say 2 minutes and 22 seconds just to give myself a little bit of wiggle room. Usually if you go off and you lose it for too much time, then at that point you're pretty much done and dusted. Might as well just park it and wait until the end. We do have a couple people trying to get out of the pits to maybe get an extra lap in. Right now, Chris Vining is on an improvement. It's 3/10. Could this be the 2:16 we've been waiting for?
And the track has just gone up to optimum. There we go. That's what I was thinking about. That's why you want to leave your qualifying, your best effort in qualifying out to the final lap, because that's when the track is fastest. And those who were in the pits a little early, which is actually a majority of the grid, it seems, they're going to lose out on this final optimum lap.
Yeah, Vining just really climbing up right now. He's got half a second up on his personal best. Keep in mind, it was a 2:17.3. So if he can just nail this last couple corners, then we could see that 2:16, and he overshoots a little bit. Not by much, loses a tenth or two, and he comes up to the line. Is it the 2:16? Across he goes. Yes, it is a 2:16.975 for the Briton there. That is a massive improvement. Half a second up of second place.
But second place is then on the valid lap. So we'll see if he can improve something. Same goes for Dombrowskis in P3. Same goes for Vinogradov in P5.
That's going to be a tall order. Only 2/10 up for Rumbouts. He's running about as wide as he dares. Dombrowskis is not really on an improvement, more of an even lap right now, as he's going up to Blanchimont here. 2 more corners remaining for the Lithuanian. Just up ahead we see, I believe, that is... that's not a Mercedes. Either way, we're getting to the final corner. Vinogradov makes it up into P3, surprisingly overtaking Dombrowski's, so across the line he goes. Will not improve, so it is up to Rumbouts. Will he be able to knock Vining off of the top step? Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to be possible. Across the line P2 at 2:17.285. The best he can manage.
Look at that, 2 Hondas at the very top. Who would have expected that?
I know.
And there we go. My man, who I've recruited for P1, has indeed gotten P1, but yeah, as we said, it's we have a little surprise in there of one of the Pro-Am drivers up into the top 3 with the Rumbouts in P2 in the Honda. So we'll see. Maybe we've got a pro change for him coming as well pretty soon.
We'll have to wait and see. That's a very slick livery for Vinogradov. So we get into the final countdown before the first race here this afternoon. I think we should take a moment to talk about this format that's going on. So for those of you that are new to the OOR and you're wondering what in the world we're talking about with super sprints, the way it works is instead of the 1 hour long race that we're expecting or rather used to, what we do is we have 2 separate races. The first one is 20 minutes. The second is 40 minutes. You go through the first qualifying session, your grid is set, and you head on out. After that first race is done and dusted, what will happen is we'll take the top 12 drivers and reverse grid them. So if you finish in first, you're going to be starting in P12, the second is P11, and third is P10, so on and so forth. And then everybody from 13th and beyond will go out and do a qualifying session. What happens after that is everyone gets into the grid like you see right now, and the race director will start calling out the numbers of the cars who were in that top 12. So they'll go out and they'll line up behind the safety car, and we'll try to get a straight line as best we can. It's sort of a hit or miss as to whether or not these drivers can manage that. We might give them a ruler just to make sure. But once they're all out, the rest of the grid will be allowed to move forward. Now this actually has a bit of an effect on the race start, because the game doesn't understand that we're doing this reverse grid order. It just says, okay, here's the order of the grid, here's who was in first at the end of qualifying, here's who was in second, so on and so forth. So that timing line that the game uses to trigger the race start is actually delayed a bit. So with Spa especially, being stuck about to go up Eau Rouge or already being up Eau Rouge is definitely going to cause a few issues, because you're uphill, you're slow, and you're getting on the gas. So definitely lower amounts of acceleration. So it'll be a bit more chaotic at the start, if you ask me.
Being out front around here at Spa at the start is not a perfect position to be in either way, because you also have the hugely long straights that comes after Raidillon that you're gonna have to defend on, and that people are gonna try to catch you on. So it's very possible to already see position changes for the lead on the first lap, on the first straights. And in fact, I've done it personally, and I've seen it many times. Going 3 wide is a very common opportunity on, well, before the first corner even arrives, before the first run through Les Combes.
Yeah, you'd think that drivers would be able to manage to keep it in a straight line, although it is a little bumpy up there, so a little bit of steering wheel jerk will mess you up. But the Simrigs safety car, a new livery this go around, will peel away, and the rest of the field will follow. So we have a nice long lap, nice little parade lap, wave high to the fans, maybe make a cup of tea, read a book by the time you get to the race start. But I'm ready.
Yeah, don't worry. On this wonderful out lap or a warm-up lap behind the safety car at Spa, I have arranged for you War and Peace, the masterpiece by Leo Tolstoy, which I'm going to read in full by the time we're going back to the starting line.
Oh, I was going to read The Art of War. Ah, goodness.
Ah, well, look at that. Great minds think alike, huh?
I wouldn't say great minds, but definitely thinking alike. But 20 minutes ahead, so, I mean, 20 minutes at Spa, that's a pretty common occurrence in the ACC sphere, if you ask me. I see plenty of lobbies that are rocking up with Spa in 20 minutes. Pretty common pairing. So for a lot of these drivers, this should be a familiar territory at least. So we should see a lot of chaos in the 20-minute super sprint race coming up.
Yeah, it's gonna be the first super sprint race for a lot of these drivers, surely. Coming into the series, pretty new. Super sprint races are, of course, a thing in many leagues, but it is a relatively uncommon format. So it's gonna be exciting to see how people get along, and how much we try to, well, immediately fight it out in this little 20-minute sprint race. And then, of course, the reverse grid super sprint race, where the fast guys are gonna have, or the fast drivers are gonna have to go past the slower drivers, which of course invites even more carnage.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. And then you also have all the other drivers behind who could possibly impede your progress, which makes coming back up from 12th a lot harder. So it'll be a sight to behold, I think, for race number 2. That'll be a 40-minute race as a reminder, but we get through here to Stavolo, and the safety car should be peeling away very shortly, and at that point, we are going to be getting 2x2 for the start of this race. But for now, we remain single file.
Yeah, it's still gonna take us through Courbevoie and through Blanchimont.
Here we go.
The starting line, remember, the starting line at Spa is coming down to Eau Rouge. It's not on this little straight where the usual laps are counted. It is after La Source, after the first corner, is the actual starting line.
Yep. So safety car peels away. It's 2x2 here for quite a while, if it'll feel like. Once we get to that timing line, Honda on the front row, Vining and Rumbouts are going to lay claim to that area of the grid. And then it's Vinogradov, Dombrowski's, Hearn, your top 5. Hudson leading from Michaels, Fredrickson, Cuthbert, and Tully to round out the top 10, and everyone else following suit. I am absolutely ready for what is to come. We've got 25 cars here on the grid this evening through the bus stop chicane we go, and like Simon said, we are going to be starting after La Source, and actually a good maybe fifth of the way down the hill. So for those farther back, they are going to have a bit of an advantage, as they'll have more run up to Eau Rouge. Vining and Rumbouts will probably suffer the most here, just because of positioning and the less time they have to actually get up to speed. I'm fairly certain we should have everybody around the source by the time that we go green. But ladies and gentlemen, it is race 1 here at Spa, the first race of 2 this evening. Vining on pole from Rumbouts, Vinogradov, Dombrowski's, Hearn, Hudson, Michaels, Fredrickson, Cuthbert, Tully in that top 10. We trudge down the hill here, waiting for that green flag to come out. They cross one of the few timing lines, and it's green, 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 and it's not going to be the best start there for Vining. Rumbouts does get a very solid start, and already we're going up through Eau Rouge, and everybody sort of lifting to let everybody else through. They don't want any carnage. Onto the Kemmel straight we go. The Hondas remain up front. Same with Vinogradov. Although Dombrowski's is already starting some moves. We're going to go almost 3 wide here down into the Lake Coombe chicane. Oh, and it looks like one of the Hondas missed the braking point a little bit and has to drop back. But it's been a very clean start for everybody as we get through Lake Coombe for the tail end of this grid. But what a start we've had. Although Fabian Schopp is looking like already with some damage.
Yeah, a lot of steering damage on the front there. You can see him leaving tire marks as he goes. Also, McConnell, some very solid damage. Oh god, that BMW, I've rarely seen such a damaged car in ACC. So let's figure out what exactly has happened there.
We'll check back in as we pop back up front here. Vining with the lead. Rumbouts did lose some time there at the start. And you can see just the gap that Vining already has, and you can see the absolute train forming behind Rumbouts. I don't think he wants to be a train conductor in this lifetime, but maybe in another one he is. It's been a very good start here for everybody, barring a few, as Rumbouts, I think for a moment, got a little bit squirrely there. Bonnefoy is running pretty high up here for Porsche in P14 right now, has just gotten around Zenaker, going a bit wide, and in the background we do see Berger as well going wide there, and we go just about 2 wide here up through Paul Ferrat, and we do have yellow flag coming out that could be for the Porsche. We saw earlier Bonnefoy dipping down the inside, but he's not done yet. He still has to defend from Zenaker as we go into the bus stop chicane. He is going to be on that inside line defending the corner, and will of course have all the real estate there. Maintains that P14 for the time being, but across the line it's Vining, Rumbouts, Vinogradov, Hearn, Dombrowski's top 5, Michaels, Hudson, Fredrickson, Boschart, and Cuthbert into the top 10. So a couple of position changes here.
And I can tell you what has happened on the first lap. Between Sharp and between McConnell, we've had a big crash in the Kemmel corner as we go actually 2 wide. Do we go 2 wide into the Eau Rouge? Let's see it.
Yes, we do.
There we go. Hearn actually does keep it. Oh, but he does cut the corner of Raidillon very harshly. So we'll see how that goes. But usually going into Eau Rouge 2 wide, not a really good idea. But they managed to get there safely. Let's pick a slightly calmer moment to. Oh, there we go.
Ooh.
The 2 Alpha Sim Sports team members there. The Mercedes behind, getting a little slippery, but managed to keep the position. All right, there we go.
Very
So
solid.
back to McConnell and Sharp. We've had a big crash between the two, trying to go 2 wide through the Kemmel corner, and we've also had Perkins involved in that crash.
Yeah, Perkins actually leaving pit lane right now, so... Or no, sorry, going into pit. I forgot that the pit boxes pushed way back. So that is definitely going to be, I would say, over and out for their first race, especially with how long the pit lane is here at Spa. Dombrowski's right now is in P7, having to defend from the chasing Fredrickson, who could possibly be looking at a promotion during the bye week as we or when we round out tonight's broadcast. And you can see just up ahead the two Alpha Sim Sport drivers having a little bit of an argument over who is going to be in front. Of course, they're going to settle it like gentlemen. So
let's hope they do.
Yeah, hopefully they can settle it cleanly and not have to resort to, say, some gloves off racing. Vining right now, 2.5 seconds is the gap down to Rembouts, and he's got 0.8 to Vinogradov, who has been working with this Honda to pull away as it's 2 seconds down to Hearn. So there are gaps starting to form here already. Ippolito right now is having to deal with Cairns, who looks to be a little bit later on the break. The Scotsman is looking to get the Italian's number and get around for that P12, although for the time being, the 140 Mercedes holds on, but we are going to be going through another lap. We are going to be going through a section of track that the McLaren absolutely shines in, so we'll have to see what happens. Cuthbert with one of the best liveries I've ever seen in P10 right now. Tully has not given up at all. The Irishman desperate for a top 10 finish, although if positions stay the way they are, they could be starting at the front of the grid.
Oh, and we've had a crash. We've had a crash in Rouge Vinogradov. Frontal impact into the curbs around Eau Rouge, or into the walls around Eau Rouge, and that front of that Audi is absolutely destroyed.
Let's see what happens. So he comes up and
a little too much on the inside.
Oh, goodness.
There we go.
So
that might have been some lag there from the Honda of Rembouts.
Wow, that...
And Rembouts as well is now off in Lecombe, slowly crawling on the side of the corner. I have no idea what's happening there, but that looked like a big lag spike from him.
I don't know.
And
so
of course, still impacted from that the collision.
Yeah, he's suffering hard. I feel like he may have gone a little bit wide there at the start, or at Eau Rouge, and hit the wall. So he is absolutely hurting right now. It should be noted that Vinogradov does have the fastest lap with a 2:17.6, and he actually is carrying on, so it looks like he is going to try to get back to the pits with a front end Audi that is, well, about as open as you can really get without popping the thing.
You're right, there was not a lag spike. It looked really weird from a third-person perspective briefly, but no, Rembouts has managed to lose the rear going through Eau Rouge. Actually very early in the corner, very easy thing to do sometimes. It's a very tough bump here that can really unsettle the car. Goes really wide in Raidillon, hits the wall, bounces back onto the track and right into Vinogradov. So that's the two of the front runners, P2 and 3, taken out of the race on lap 3, sorry.
Unfortunate. They'll have race number 2, of course, to get things sorted out. We saw Hudson getting around Michaels, perhaps a little bit of a bump in run, maybe pulling one from Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s playbook. He was known for doing the bump and run during the NASCAR, or his run in NASCAR. They're not done yet, of course. Michaels will not give this up that easily, although Dombrowski's behind. We'll have quite the slipstream as we head onto the back straight, or on, I guess, the front straight, depending on how you want to look at it. We see Vinogradov into the pits, Rembouts as well, and Tully, who looks to, I think he may have been caught up in something that we didn't quite see. Dombrowski's actually not with the best line. Michael's looking to go around the outside here. Hudson, though, shutting the door on the inside and having to force him backwards. And I don't think these Alpha Sim Sport drivers are quite done yet.
That's how strong the slipstream is on the Camel Straights, but you also have to have a really good position to actually, you know, attempt to make a proper pass into Lecombe. So, defending the inside is very strong around there, but we'll see. Oh, Michaels is going a little bit drifty through No Name, going a little bit wide as well, so he is pushing as hard as he can to stay on the back of Hudson.
Yeah, it's definitely getting to a point where it seems to be a little bit difficult. Just over a second between these two drivers at the moment. We'll see if those times do come down. Tully out of the pits, so he's going to try to get back out there. Perhaps we'll take Rembouts and Vinogradov down a lap. That will absolutely mix up qualifying quite a bit, because our usual front runners are sitting in the back. So not only are they going to effectively be relegated to the Q2 running, but they also have to push through the reverse grid on top of what their competitors are doing. So I think race number 2 is going to be a little bit more spicy.
Well, we already have a lot of spice, and I believe we actually have missed a crash on the second lap, just in La Source, the first corner of the lap. Actually quite a big rear-ending collision between, let's see, Paffett, Zelmansky and Berger, all three of those involved in that collision. So some solid damage on all three of those cars, especially Zelmansky though, who then, on lap 3, trying to go through Eau Rouge, has lost the car and has taken just a little bit more damage, spinning in Eau Rouge and clattering into the wall. So not a solid first race for him. But the car is still running, still in P19. And there's only 10 minutes to go, so let's see how long he can hold on. And he has quite a large gap behind him, so P19 is a relatively secure position for him.
Yeah, we take a look over at the track map right now. You can see just how far ahead Vining is. He has just completely dodged all the chaos and has actually gotten around a blue flag. So he has taken that green flag and has just sent it, has not looked back at all, has said, I am done here, I'm going to go and win this first race, ideally. Obviously, try not to curse anything, of course. And get ready for that reverse grid. So we're about halfway through the race right now. It is Vining, Hearn, Hudson, Michaels, Dombrowski's top 5, Fredrickson, Cuthbert, Boschart, Ippolito, and Cairns for the top 10. So, and we'll throw, obviously, Bonnefoy and Zenaker in there because of that reverse grid order, but it has been a pretty explosive start here to this race.
Meanwhile, Vinogradov has gotten back out of the pits, a lap down, but still in P21 of P25, so you can see how big those very early crashes are to, well, allow a car with such a big impact and a full pit stop to still stay in P21. But he is, of course, well, unless something big happens, likely going to stay in that P21, but he is going to finish the race, it seems.
Always good right now. We've got Missoria here trying to hunt down Pafa, who does not get Puhan as well as the Honda. Now, despite being in the slipstream, he does seem to struggle to catch up. Just that acceleration and top end of the Honda, although coming out of the corner, he doesn't get it too well. And that'll give Missouri a chance to actually catch back up. So as we go here on to one of the back straights, if you want to call it that, is could possibly be a move. He does get a better drive out of the corner, and we could be looking at 2 wide here as they go under the banner on the inside for Missouri. There's a tap there onto the Honda. Puffett's going to go wide. He is going to fight back, though. He's not done yet. 2 wide. He's running out wide as we go through Blanc-Chamois, and I don't know how the stewards are going to look at that one. But for the time being, Puffett is staying in P16. Berger actually catching up to join this duo.
There we go, it's not winding down. In the meantime, the gap between Hudson and Michaels has opened up quite a bit, over 2 seconds now, but that has invited Dombrowskis to the back of P4. And he was actually very close just then, going through Eau Rouge, but has increased the gap just a bit, having to lift off a little in Eau Rouge. But we might have a battle for P4 very soon here between Dombrowskis and Michaels.
Michael's last lap was a 2:19.6. Dombrowski's was a 2:19.3. So 3/10 is the gap right now, and at a current standing gap of 7/10. We could see an attack here in the next couple of laps. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. One challenge we do have to keep an eye on is... Oh no, this actually I believe is... Oh no, this is Cairns getting around Vinogradov, the back marker. So... yeah, Vinogradov way down, and we actually see Puffett losing it a fair bit, and Berger is catching up. So whatever happened to Puffett since the last time we saw him has gotten worse.
But we have some solid little groups, some solid little battles right now in the field. We have that, well, that group that could evolve into a battle between Michaels and Dombrowskis. We've also, just behind them, we've got Fredrickson and Cuthbert, very close to each other. And we've got Zinnecker and Bonnefoy fighting for P10, or actually, oh, as Zinecker loses a lot of the rear.
Well, we have...
What do you have in the meantime?
Well, I saw Tully was sitting there at the top of Raidillon, and I thought it might have been damaged, but it looks like he may have just parked up, so I'm not too certain what's going on there. Maybe a mechanical issue. I thought for sure he may have lost it and gone off. Maybe got into a bit of an accident, but right now he's just... Yeah, he's back in the pits.
I've just checked it for you. He has lost it right in the middle of Eau Rouge.
Oh,
and just slowly slid out wide into the wall and has decided to end it there.
So he's in the pits. Vinogradov into the pits. I'm not quite sure what for. Doesn't appear to be a steering issue. Maybe tires, maybe brakes, maybe something else. Although he is just parking it up here, and I think he might be done.
Just the retirement. Well, let's see, we have something going on.
Dombrowski's still chasing down Michael's last lap, 2:18.3 for both of them. Dombrowski's had to lose out that lap, though, 7/100ths slower than the Briton ahead. And doing everything he can to catch up. This Aston Martin is starting to slide all over the place a little bit, so Dombrowski's could be going for a move here soon enough. You can see just how close he is. And to the inside goes Michaels to defend on this corner. Could we see a little bit of a switcheroo here? It doesn't look like it, as Dombrowski's actually has to pull back a little bit, I think, to avoid going into the rear right quarter panel of that Aston Martin. You can see them running out wide there, using all the road available to them. And for the time being, Michaels stays ahead. Vining, though, has actually lost a bit of time. He was looking at about 3 seconds, and now he's at about 2.5. Actually, no, it does go back up. It's actually 8 seconds. I'm not reading things properly. He does have fastest lap, a 2:16.8.
That is very, very solid in the race. Now, of course, the race is only 20 minutes, so we're not carrying a full fuel load, but either way, that is faster, I believe, than his qualifying time, so that is a statement that will stand on its own. I have other news for you in the meantime. Cairns, out of P10, has crashed in Puhan big time and has entered the pits. I'm not sure if he is still in the pits. Let's check. Yes, he is still sitting in the pits.
Well, the circuit that everybody races on is still always full of surprises. We hop back here. Ash Barlow right now has Sven Vischer behind in that dazzling BMW. A little bit of a camouflage livery, trying to give you a bit of a hard time as to where that car is exactly as we come up here to Blanchimont. The Aston Martin ahead. This is the third highest rated amateur class. Drivers Zinecker and Fredrickson are ahead. It looks like Vischer has actually not gotten the turn quite as well and has to back out as we head through the bus stop chicane, although Barlow may have overshot it a little bit, and that does give Vischer a chance to catch up. So as we head down to La Source, I wouldn't be too surprised if we see a bit of a change here, as down the inside looks Vischer, and he will lay claim to that corner, but he might not get the best drive out of the corner. And as I say that, he actually does get a very solid drive and does overtake P12. So Vischer, at the moment, should things stay the way they are, is looking at a P1 start for race 2.
Oh, that's the magical position, P12. That's going to be one you really don't want to lose. So normally I would expect Barlow to fight tooth and nail to hang on to that P12 position. So we'll see how the final 3 minutes of this race turn out.
Yeah, we're looking at maybe a couple more laps. Chris Vining right now in a very commanding lead. We'll have probably one more lap to do after this, and then we'll be done and dusted for race number 1. Cuthbert has gotten around Fredrickson for P6, so the amateur class driver getting pushed down, and Ippolito with a drive-through penalty. That is definitely going to be for track limit, so he'll have to serve that now. If he doesn't, he'll get a 30-second, and actually, maybe taking that 30-second penalty might be better than a drive-through, because consider how long it takes to get through Spa's pit lane for a moment. It definitely takes more than 30 seconds.
It is ridiculous. It is the longest, by far the longest pit lane in ACC. I believe it's something around 70 seconds,
well, they're
just driving through alone. But it is automatically converted to a 30-second penalty in OR, since it would be just ridiculous to give someone a 70-second penalty for ignoring track limits.
Yep, so on to the final lap we go. Vining has had quite the race start, so he'll be starting at P12 as he's got a 9-second gap down to Hearn. So he'll be starting in P12, Hearn P2 or P10 or P11. I can't math. Parfit picking up 10 seconds. I believe that may have been contact with Berger earlier on in this race. So on top of the damage he's sustained, he's also got 10 seconds. Zelmanski's will pick up this position. Rumbouts will not. So Parfit at the very least will lose just the one position, and for him that's better than losing more than one, definitely.
Absolutely, but things are not done. Although the battles have opened up just a little bit now in this final lap. Although Hudson is getting relatively close to Hearn. Not quite close enough, likely, to launch something on this final lap, though.
No, the gap right now is about a second, a little bit more than that. So Hudson has to bank on what is effectively his teammate I'm thinking of Michaels. He's got to bank on Hearn making some sort of a statement. Right now it's an all-pro top 4. Dombrowski's splitting it up with P5. But we look to Chris Vining right now, who is going through, I believe, campus, if I remember correctly. I don't know. My mind's kind of all over the place right now. But through Stavolo, it's been a very good afternoon, or very good race one here for Vining, as he got away from the start and, well, never really looked back after the incident involving fellow Honda driver Rumbouts. Had plenty of time to work with, and he is gonna just power on through Blanc-Chemin here in just a moment. Yes, he does. Puts it together quite nicely and just has the bus stop chicane to go through. But Chris Vining will pick up the race win and the fastest lap with a 2:16.8. And he is looking to start P12 here as he rounds the final corner and will pick up the checkered flag, flashing the headlights in celebration. And we look back to Hearn, who does have Hudson in tow. Hudson was not able to get around this Aston Martin. So onto the podium for race number 1 is Hearn, as well as Hudson and Michaels coming through here. And actually, it's going to be a late lunge by Dombrowski's. What is happening? Michaels going wide. Is Michaels out of fuel?
What a fuel issue.
Oh, no. You can't end a race. He just miscalculated. He is putzing along. And there's actually another Aston Martin out of fuel. Is that Fredrickson? It is. They're both going to stop short of the line.
I do not believe it. What have these Aston Martins done? How much have they drank in this race?
Not enough.
2 Aston Martins running out of fuel, coming out of the final corner of the race.
Oh, Michaels has to go back to the pit. Same with Fredrickson. What an end to this race. Normally you're able to calculate it, but it looks like the calculations were off. Maizoria will also pick up a position. Same with Hausmann and Berger. Parfait with that 10-second till Zelmanski will lose a position, but we'll get promoted up a few with Michaels and Fredrickson not making it through. Rumbouts, Cairns as well. Done and dusted. Perkins has not seen the best afternoon for his Mercedes at all.
What an absolutely wild end to this race. Coming out of P2, and you lose fuel on the final corner of the race. And, of course, what was the other victim as well?
It was Fredrickson.
Check. Fredrickson, of course, yes. Not a bad position for him either, if he had finished the race. But that is heartbreak. That is a teachable moment, I would say, to pay very close attention to your fuel in the future. Man, that was a 20-minute race, and it was a race of attrition, not only through crashes, but also through fuel, it seems.
Yep, even though a lot of these drivers are, doing what they do, and they're very, very good at it, things can just go a bit sideways, and we saw that here today. So we're actually, the game sort of saying, well, we still got some time to relax as we get everybody through, but I'm absolutely ready for race number 2 to see what these drivers have in store for us.
Well, we're going to be seeing Mr. Vining starting in P12, and with the pace that he showed, I mean, finished with more than a 10-second lead. Yes, 10.0 second lead. There we go, or 10.1, rounded up. So 20-second race, a 20-minute race, 10-second lead. So that is some solid pace from the Honda, from Weining in the Honda. So, well, we do know though the Honda is not an easy car to drive in dirty air. So he's gonna have a hard time getting through that field back to possibly P1. And we saw him having a pretty difficult time as well in the first race of the season, where he was sent to the back in his turn 2 crash.
Yeah, well, we get through to the end of the session, so Michaels and Fredrickson will actually finish 17 and 18 after their fuel mishaps. And obviously the penalties went through. So now we go on to quali number 2. So what's happening right now is the race director has already said which drivers are staying behind. So we'll see just who is able to pick up some positions. Tully will be the first one out in the Honda. He did not have the best race start, or the best race won. So he'll be setting the bar and, well, perhaps see if he can maybe start in P13. Although with Vinogradov out there, that will definitely be difficult. Same with Rumbouts.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, in the chat, we have Ryan Cuthbert saying he's happy with this one. Great race, everyone. And absolutely congrats to you. As well, we have Ben Millard having some words of wisdom for Michaels, his teammates.
I think Gordon Ramsay may have gotten into his account. Bricks Films, hoping for the same quality conditions as this split. Well, we've had some sunshine, and we're going to keep that going. I believe if you listen closely, you'll actually hear Mr. Blue Sky playing in the background over the circuit speakers. And what a very appropriate song for this afternoon as we go out on track Optimum. So we actually are already starting on the best track conditions, unlike race number 1 where we started off on fast, and in the last couple of minutes we picked up an Optimum track. So for this entire quali session, these drivers will be running on the best track conditions possible for the next 6 minutes.
And lots of rubber already stuck down on the track. It is a little bit warmer, 22 ambient, 29 track, so it's gonna drop down the pace just a tiny little bit, but still conditions that we are going to see some very, very solid times in. And remember, so it's P13 down, qualifying in the second qualifying, but that doesn't, of course, mean the 13 slowest cars of the first race. That means the 13 cars that finished lowest, and we have had a lot of very, very highly or very quick cars finishing very low in this race due to all sorts of different trouble. So it's not going to be a straightforward qualifying, and we're going to see some very fast people going to take quote-unquote pole in this second qualifying.
Yeah, Vinogradov and Michaels especially. The only pro-rated drivers who are out on track right now. Every other pro is in the pit lane. We have some pro-ams in here as well. Tully, as we mentioned before, Rumbouts after his run-in with Barriar earlier on. Ippolito finishing just outside that top 12. Cairns is also out on track, so those are the only pro-ams. And then we do have some amateur class drivers who are in the pits. Normally we see these second qualifying sessions being populated by what seems like mostly amateur class drivers, but Z-Naker gets to have a chance to sort of relax. Same with Hausman and Barlow, so those guys benefiting from the other mistakes and will be starting in this top 12 reverse grid order. It's definitely going to be a bit difficult, I think, for them to maintain, especially with some of the faster competition behind.
Oh, for sure. Meanwhile, Mullard, our winner from the first round of the season, in the chat saying he couldn't make tonight's race, but he'll be back next round, enjoying the comms. And thank you very much. We're looking forward to having you back.
Absolutely. Probably just taking a break from, last week's thrashing, if you will. Giving someone else a chance to win. We appreciate that. We do have a bye week coming up this after this race, so we'll have a week off before the next race of the season, which, if I'm not mistaken, will be Circuit of the Americas.
Ooh. And it was a very solid race we've seen there last season. Still a relatively new track. It hasn't turned out to be the most popular track in ACC, so even those drivers that we have in here that have raced at Kota last time, likely not super familiar with the track still. And since we have a lot of new drivers, surely there's going to be a few in there that have not raced at Kota at all so far. Meanwhile, we see McConnell is just invalidated his lap, cleared the wall. That is definitely going to put a buffer on his qualifying efforts, since he might just about have enough time to return to the pits and repair his car. But he is apparently looking to continue with his slightly damaged car and see if he can not still get a quality time in. Basking in the glory of winning a race for once, says Mullard. Hope no rain this season, like last season at Kota. Yeah, well, Kota is it is one with a lot of runoff. It is kind of like Paul Ricard in that regard. So maybe you need some rain to make things a little more interesting, to make things a little more spinny. Because otherwise, how are you ever going to spin on a track that's basically a car park?
Well, I mean, people can spin on any just track. We saw it here this afternoon. Michaels right now is on top of the 2:18.1, and of course, as I open my mouth, Eugene Vinogradov shutting it, saying, "Here's a 2:17.7. Beat that." So it's Vinogradov, Michaels from Bouts, Tully, Cairns, Berger, Poffit, Shop, Perkins, who have set times. McConnell will. Someone just popped up. Perkins. Nope. Someone just moved. I think it was Perkins. I don't remember. But McConnell is still yet to set a lap. Same with Zalmanskis and Boschart. So Ippolito as well, struggling to set a time right now. He had a 2:19.2, but invalidated. So this is going to be the final lap, actually. So by the time the Italian gets back around, it'll be his one and only qualifying lap. Hopefully, his one and only valid qualifying lap, and see how far that puts him up. And we're being told
28 livery.
Yeah, it is good. I wanted to mention it. It's very nice.
Absolutely. So shout out to Ewan Kearns for his 28 livery. Always good to see some livery appreciation in the chat. Also, Nicholas saying bye week is perfect before Kota. Gonna learn the track for 2 weeks straight. That is probably not a bad idea. Kota is such a weird one, such an awkward one to get used to. So good luck for that.
Yeah, it's a track that I struggle with, especially through the S's. I don't know what it is. I can handle Silverstone's S's with no problem, but when it comes to Kota, I just completely forget how to drive.
I think harking back to my earliest laps around Silverstone, I wasn't very comfortable with the S's at Silverstone either. Of course, now I've driven the track a million times. Both voluntarily and involuntarily. But I am one of those as well who hasn't had any race at all so far at Kota. But one is going to come up soon, so not sure if I'm looking forward to that. It's definitely not going to be easy to get used to it.
Well, I mean, I'll be in the booth, so I don't care. I'll be calling it, so will you. But I'm sure you have other sim racing things that are being taken care of. But 15-14 to go, so a good chunk of these drivers are going to be getting another chance. We look back to Ippolito, who is caught up to the Honda of, I believe that's from Bouts ahead, and it is. So across the line he goes, and actually a very good P6 right now. That'll put him down P19 for the start of this race, but he does just get across the line, so Ippolito is going to be looking to improve. Looking at other drivers, Vinogradov has a chance to improve. Same with Michaels from Bouts, Tully, Cairns, who is on the back straight. And right now we don't really have a lot of improvements. McConnell has not really had a chance to set a time.
He's now setting his lap, and it's a very, very safe lap. Coming in, yeah, in a 2:27. So we have a few drivers towards the back of this qualifying that apparently, like I said, have just made sure to get in any lap that counts. Because we also have Husman and Barlow, who have not set any valid laps. So even if you set the slowest lap, like McConnell, you're still gonna, well, qualify in front of last place.
Yeah, you'll start in the back. You can sort of avoid all the carnage. Right now, Michaels is sort of doing the opposite. He's looking to try to get as far ahead of the mid-pack as he can. He's a little bit over 4/10 behind Vinogradov as he goes through the bus stop right now. He's still 3/10, now 4/10 ahead of his personal best. So across the line he goes, and he's going to fall just 800ths short of that pseudo pole position. Tully coming across here in P number 3. Rombouts is coming through, or actually has just gotten through Blanchimont at the moment. Finds himself a little over a second ahead, so this could potentially be a 16, albeit barely. Through the bus stop he goes. The Honda, one of the best cars here. So coming out of the final corner, across the line he goes. It's going to be a 2:17.1. That is half a second down to Vinogradov, who's only 3/10 up into the bus stop, and it's going to take quite a miracle right now to try and work things out as we see Cairns exiting shot there. So Cairns will be in P7. Vinogradov doesn't improve. Looks like he actually went a bit wide. So it's Rombouts on top of Q number 2, and then Vinogradov and Michaels, that top 3. But now we get ready once more for this race start. And you know what? I think we should take a nice moment and just take a look at these liveries, because I feel like we didn't take a good enough look at them the last time we strolled on through the...
And I'm gonna have to say, I'm a big fan of Vinogradov's livery. We've also got some slight backstory on the 28th livery from Cuthbert in the chat, saying the livery originally actually got rejected, as the mods thought it was an actual error.
Really? That's... wow, that is...
So it seems.
I mean, decal.png could not be found, winky face with the nose. So, you know what? Yeah, I can see that. Why they would think that. We got some... I believe it was the top of... yes. Or no, sorry, not... some just nice OOR liveries or decals on top. Vinogradov's car, I mean, that is slick. That actually... I think that's off-centered, too. Anyways.
Yeah, just a little bit. But it looks so good. No one cares.
Yep, we got all sorts of liveries coming out. A lot of styles. Ippolito with a very slick blue and gold for Goldie Watch. Probably a
very nice
sponsor. Yep, we always need a nice golden watch, I would say. One car I'm a huge fan of course, is Barlow's. I am absolutely in love with the color palette of this Mercedes.
That is some wild stuff.
It's like
it reminds me a lot of the first livery I've ever done. Has also employed some of those sort of camo elements. So I have that has a special place in my heart.
Yep, the number 4 McLaren of Dombrowski is also with sort of a camouflaged livery. You see his Instagram right there, Beaver Grease Racing, free promotion. But my favorite livery on this grid, of course, does have to go to the number 13 McLaren of Cuthbert, just because of the Fina livery. It's so well done. It's so well made. It's split very perfectly at an angle too. You have the old livery that we saw on the McLaren F1, the 1990, I think 99 GT car, and then of course the current McLaren livery for the F1 team in there as well. So a little bit of history for that team. A very different take on the Martini livery. Normally we see the white being the main color for the Martini livery on the Porsche, but we're going with a nice neon green this time around. And yes, then of course
it seems like we've also got a little bit of a mix maybe between the Martini livery and the Grello Porsche, the famous Porsche that's very well known at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I've seen that shade of green, I just don't remember where exactly. My Zoria also with a very nice sleek red and black livery, and then of course we have this amazing livery from Fischer. Zebra pattern, actually. Or maybe cow? No, definitely zebra.
I was going to say the same thing. Is it a zebra? Is it a cow? It's pretty looking, that's for sure.
Yep, and then just beyond that, of course, is Zenaker with the green variant of the Zenaker Racing team. So we are within 30 seconds, and we have the safety car pulling away. So now what will happen is the race directors are going to call up these drivers one by one, that top 12 reverse grid order, and they will line up. So the safety car right now on the lead lap, as is tradition. He's going to stop.
One of the cars
just
have
about
not quite gotten the memo, and Husman is running away with it.
Husband already looking to start this race off in P1. So we'll.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's. I think he might actually be supposed to be P1. I didn't even see the safety car coming through, so apologies for that.
It's all right. Well, we'll see just how straight of a line these guys can put together. Of course, we are on a curve. Ooh, we got a Aston
there we
Martin
go.
shooting way over over the mark. But just while we wait for these drivers to get lined up, of course, we just want to give another quick thank you to this series sponsor, Simrigs. Looking to upgrade, get a wheel, get a base, get some pedals, get some gloves, get something new for that setup. Simrigs has got you covered. If you're a Patreon member, you get 5% off in their store, and with how expensive sim racing equipment can be, it's definitely a good idea to use that discount. They supply all of Australia and New Zealand, but if you're like us and you happen to live outside of those borders, you can shoot them an email and they will work something out to get that equipment to you. But it looks like we've got the rest of the grid forming, the top 12 already in place. Everyone else, of course, getting set back up right now. And for right now, the timing column is a little bit messy because we have to sort of wait for everybody to cross a certain timing line for positions to be fixed. But the safety car is pulling away. We've had some drivers overshoot their mark a little bit and backing up to get back into position. Now, it is important with these reverse grids to stay in line. It can be a little bit difficult, especially with the MFD showing different timings for everything, as we do see some confusion in the back. But the grid is set, and Chevrolet will bring us around in the Simrig safety car for this parade lap.
And you want to be careful not to go backwards too far in case you've messed up the line, as the race is already, well, it's not quite underway, but we are in the race session itself, and going a little bit too far backwards will get you disqualified, which of course we don't want to see. But yeah, we do see a little bit of confusion, especially at the rear of the track, where some cars have overshot and others have fallen back, and we'll see. Hopefully that gets worked out to reinstate the proper position or make sure that everything is as it should be.
Yep, it's usually a bit of a challenge, especially the first time that you do a super sprint race, having to understand that you're going to be moved around a little bit, that the race isn't actually going to start when you expect it to. I believe these drivers in the past seasons have been very good about actually watching the race start. I don't think we've had any jump starts, at least that I can recall. And if it did happen, it may have happened in other splits. But for the most part, drivers are very, very good about waiting for the green lights. They don't really bank on feel. They just say, all right, in the second race, just wait for the lights. Everybody's going to be at a disadvantage. So we'll see what Husman does, as he actually does take the race 2 pole position with Missoria behind Barlow, Vischer, Zinaker, Bonnefoy, Bolchard, Cuthbert, Dombrowskis, Hudson, and Hearn and Vining as well. So we're going to be looking at a very interesting race start, I think.
It's surely not going to be an easy or a comfortable position for Husman to be in. Starting a race in P1 with a lot of faster drivers behind him. Not only that, but also, of course, we do have a manual start we're going to do here. So normally you do have an automated system that tells you exactly where you should be, if you're a little too far back, too far in the front, too far left, too far right. We do not have that here. We have a 100% manual start, and we have a slightly different maximum speed of 80 kilometers an hour and not 70. So it's things you gotta figure out, and that are definitely able to catch you out if you haven't done it before. So fingers crossed for Nicholas to get off to a good start on his first pole position in OR.
And he doesn't have to worry about lining up properly or behind a certain driver. He's on pole, so while everyone else struggles to figure it out, he can just keep on coasting on as he's done. So we cross the start-finish line, but we still have a good bit of time before we actually kick things off. Drivers lining up 2 by 2, probably getting told by the race director to close up the gaps, because there's a couple of gaps starting to form that could cop a penalty if it's a little too large. But ladies and gentlemen, we've had 20 minutes already. It's time for the final 40 here. Race number 2 at Spa for the EU split in the Simrigs Sprint Series. It's Husman on pole, Missoria on that front row as well. Barlow, Vischer, Zinaker, Bonnefoy, Bouchard, Cuthbert, and Dombrowskis, Hudson in the top 10. and Hearn and Vining as well in the top 12 for this reverse grid order, but we head under the total banner right now. We're still waiting, and it's green, 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 and it's actually going to be an amazing start there from Missouri. Does get ahead of Husman as we go up through Raidillon, and it looks like Vischer might also have something to say about it as he pulls ahead. Everyone else going through a little bit of 2x2 action as we head on to this back straight. Chris Vining finding himself in the thick of things right now, going onto the grass. He's got a few cars up ahead as we head down the Kemmel Straight. We've got 3, almost 4 wide up just up ahead of them as we go down into Lake Coombe, and it's the inside line, and we do have 2 cars going around, the BMW and the Porsche there, coming together and finding each other, facing in the same direction, perpendicular to the track. It was Zenaker and McConnell, actually, who got mixed up. Or actually, it looks like McConnell might have actually had his own little excursion with Parfait in this race already. Is just going way, way off as we see, yeah, Parfait into the pits. But man, what a start we've had. Hausman getting absolutely swarmed, is already going to be falling way, way down the grid. Missouri is in the lead.
Yeah, we have had quite a lot of pain in Lecombe there. We've had Sharp, Bonfoy, Zeneca, McConnell, and Paffett actually already back in the pits. Yeah, having taken some damage and having encountered some sort of trouble in Lecombe. I'm of course going to have a quick look at that to exactly tell you what happened there. Meanwhile, you get to look at the action.
Yeah, this
between
battle already.
And...
yeah, Vischer is already on the attack, and it looks like he does actually get the job done through Stavilo, so he's going to take over the lead right now. But we look out here into the back, it's going to be Ash Barlow finding themselves in pretty much a very scary situation. Behind them is Cuthbert in that McLaren with that higher top end, does not sit in the slipstream, will actually fall back, maybe looking for a move down into the bus stop chicane. Behind them, of course, is going to be Bashart, Dambrauskas, Hearn, Rombutz, and Vining with this amazing little battle pack forming. And we go down into the bus stop, and it's Vining who's going to lose the Honda in the most spectacular way. Cuts across the bus stop, somehow managing to miss everybody. And as I say that, we have got some carnage here on the exit of the chicane. This first lap already. Plenty of action, plenty of heartbreak. We got to roll this one back to see what happens. So you see Vining just losing the back end, going way across, and then it's actually going to be the 2 McLarens coming together in the middle of the corner, and everybody having to dive and jump over. But man, what an that was, I did not expect that, especially from Vining of all people.
Well, we don't know if there wasn't some little touch there that might have encouraged him to do that, but he was very, very lucky to actually fly straight through the bus stop without hitting any of those cars that were slowed down.
I know, it's incredible to see that, and that's actually given Husman a chance to regain a couple of positions. Vischer and Missouri as well will gladly take any sort of carnage behind them and pull away, try to open up this gap as much as they can. But right now, the Zebra running up front of the pack, although it's the Frenchman behind, not quite given up for Palladium, so we'll see what he can do. Michaels is in front of Hudson again for the second time this evening. 6 and 7 for the Alpha SimSport pairing, and then behind them you've got quite a gap to Tully, who has to deal with Hearn and Bashart, Vinogradov, Ippolito, Fredrickson, and even Berger to some extent in this group little battle, maybe for P8 that we'll see later on. Vinogradov going wide. He is trying to recover what he can, and he's actually done a pretty good job. He started P17, and well, right now he's up into P11.
I have just checked what has happened to Vining. It was entirely on his own. He has just clipped a little bit of the grass in the braking zone for the bus stop and has lost the car spectacularly. So very, very lucky that he hasn't hit anyone else. What has also happened in the meantime is, well, at the bus stop, is that Cuthbert has gone off the track a little bit to the left in the bus stop, has come back onto the track and clipped the back of Dambrauskas, which has caused another solid incident there, with a lot of cars having to go wide and actually hitting Dambrauskas while trying to avoid him.
Yeah, thankfully those drivers got out without too many bruises. Vining here has to deal with Zelmanskis, who does come back trying to fight for this P16. Zelmanskis gave it up willingly, and actually Perkins slow out of the corner, so he does not get the best run, is bopped down to P18, and we do see Bonifoy, one of the drivers that got caught up earlier on, has recovered as best he can right now, up into P19. So behind him is Zenaker and Dombrowskis, who has not gotten the best start, especially with the touch earlier. So he's down in P21, looking to gain back what he can. He is in the slipstream of this BMW car that doesn't perform too well, I think, at Spa.
Oh, not too sure about.
Oh God! Ooh, that was that Vining?
That was a backwards Honda. That might have been Vining.
That is. What happened, Simon? Walk us through it.
Well, we're going through Eau Rouge. Tricky corner as it is. He has to cut. Oh, there we go. He has to cut Raidillon just a little bit, and coming back onto the track, the car just absolutely loses its balance and veers into the left wall. That is an interesting incident. I've seen lots of incidents in Eau Rouge, especially with the Honda, but I haven't seen one like that so far.
Shoutouts to those drivers for being able to dodge that, especially some who were chasing another car right behind and having the reactions to just dive out of the way. I mean, that's it gets talked about all the time in motorsport when it comes to the top of Raidillon and just how many accidents occur there and how dangerous it is. And speaking of accidents, we have got a spinning Perkins off. Touch there from Bonnefoy. But just to roll this one back while we continue. Oh, that's actually a better exit there for Bonnefoy. Oh, that's definitely going to be a racing incident. But with
well, that's Perkins going a little bit wide. I believe it's Perkins, right? In the BMW.
Perkins in the Mercedes.
Yes, that's Merc going a little bit wide, and then Bonnefoy seeing that gap, trying to go for it, also going well a little wide, not off the track, but well, essentially going into Perkins, who is currently off track there. So maybe, well, definitely a little bit of a mistake from Perkins going that wide, but also from Bonnefoy, just a little bit too enthusiastic, trying to send it up the inside.
Yeah, right now.
In the meantime,
Hearn and Barlow right now, the two Aston Martins door to door right now as we head down into La Source. Hearn on the inside, prorated driver. Barlow had actually backed out earlier on, just sort of gave the position away, and Hearn actually gets a better drive out of the corner. So going to start to pull away Barlow. Unfortunately, going to be with Tully in his rear view, who does have that slipstream and does try to pull back in, and behind them, well, it's our favorite Russian, Vinogradov, and actually Barlow and Tully not with the best line, so Vinogradov will take advantage of this as he goes door to door with the Honda, although that acceleration is able to pull Tully back into contention.
Yeah, Tully has the slipstream. Vinogradov is out on his own. And there we go. Slots in back behind Tully again. In the meantime, I can tell you, by the way, what has happened on lap 1 in Lecombe. So we've originally had Seneca trying to send it up the inside of Bonnefoy, making contact there, which spun the two of them around. In the back, we've also had something much more serious. Of course, the field was starting to stack up because of that incident, and cars were braking early. Paffitz, apparently, well, he was a little too far back. He couldn't see those cars stacking up in time. So immediately dashes on the brakes, tries to steer to the right to avoid the BMW in front of him, clatters into the wall, bounces back, and then takes out both the BMW and the Porsche of Sharp as well.
Oh,
it's a very unlucky situation there at the back of the field in Lecombe on lap 1.
Yeah, this is what happens with these reverse grid races and super sprints. There's always some form of excitement, and it might not be the cleanest excitement, but you know, for spectators, it's something to really keep an eye on, as we see Barlow getting a little loose out of the corner. That gets Vinogradov around. Same with Tully, who just sort of strolled on through, no problem. And Fredrickson all over the tail end of his Aston Martin teammate as they go through. They come up here to Blanc-Chamont. And behind them is actually Bouchard, who's actually done a pretty good job of catching up the Belgian here on home territory as we go into the bus stop chicane out to the inside for Fredrickson into this corner. And Barlow out braking himself and going a bit wide there into the chicane. Does pick it up quite nicely as we head onto the front straight again. So these three drivers starting to work together a little bit, maybe just do battle instead, as Fredrickson's very early on the brakes tried to maybe do a little bit of a switcheroo on to Barlow, but that has actually not played out quite as well as Bouchard catches up. They got a pretty even exit out of the corner, but the Ferrari is going to back out and just wait until the Camel Straight, but that has brought Berger a lot closer. Berger with a stronger slipstream than Bouchard has on Fredrickson. And out to the left side there.
We have a chain for the lead. We have Rumbaut, who has just gone around Fischer at the end of the Camel Straight, and is now into P1 already.
Yeah, Rumbaut's with that fastest lap as well, 2:18.1 there for the Dutch. And Bouchard does really cut the inside of that corner, hopefully within track limits, but does keep Berger at bay. Berger is going to have to give up this inside line. Cairns, though, does not get the best exit. A little bit of a wiggle there on the back end as he goes door-to-door here downhill. The inside line is where you want to be. It's the racing line, and he will get that done. So Berger, who had a chance at P11, is going to get pushed back by the Scot, and now has to deal with getting back around as Bouchard pulls away. But Bouchard in no man's land right now as Barlow and Fredrickson are going door-to-door. These Aston Martins are not done. It looked like Barlow tried to get something down the inside and will have to concede.
We've also had a big battle between Tully, Vinogradov, and Husman, of which Husman was the losing party who has lost 2 positions and is now behind both Vinogradov and Tully. Now, Vinogradov is on the back of Tully, definitely wanting to get past.
Yep, Tully, though, in that Honda. Very strong here at Spa. Vinogradov with the slipstream behind, and I don't think he's going to be close enough for a move, although if Tully does not get Blanchimont quite as well, he could pull the Russian closer, and it looks like Vinogradov actually got a much better line and does pull in close. A bit later on the brakes, actually a little bit harder on the brakes, trying to get a better exit out of the corner, but Tully does hang on for right now. But there is going to be another overtaking opportunity as we get onto the Camel Straight. Hudson picking up fastest lap in the meantime at 2:18.0, so we're getting really close to that 2:17.
Oh, absolutely. And that battle between Vinogradov and Tully is not done at all. We have the Honda a little bit faster in the fast corners on this track around here, and on the straight probably. Meanwhile, we also have the Audi that is a lot faster coming out of the slow corners on acceleration. But, well, we've had the section with the slow corners with the bus stop and La Source already passed, with Vinogradov not able to make the overtake there. And now we have, we're going through this the part of the track where Tully has the advantage again.
Yeah, these, like you said, those higher speed corners, something that the Honda really does. Or, I'm thinking, I don't even know. I just lost my train of thought. Oh god,
the Honda.
It's been a day.
The Honda should have the advantage in the fast high-speed corners and on the straights, while the Audi should have the advantage in the low-speed corners.
Yeah, but think about how many medium and high-speed corners there are here at this track.
That's
I mean, advantage definitely towards the Honda.
For sure, it's just a little bit. Both cars are very, very strong around here. But over the course of a lap, I think there's a good chance that Tully has a slightly better car.
Possibly. We'll have to wait and see what unfolds as we get just a little more, or a little bit beyond 26.5 to go. Right now, Ippolito having to defend from Dombrowski's here. Doesn't get the best line. That does pull the McLaren in a little bit closer. The Mercedes, right now the highest Mercedes is Hudson in P2, but you got to think about the car that's currently behind the British manufacturer with quite a lot of speed under the hood, and of course with that slipstream, Ippolito having to actually lift a little bit. You just barely heard it, and that is going to bring Dombrowski's door-to-door right now, and we actually see just up ahead Cairns and Barlow as well doing door-to-door. Ippolito having to concede, unfortunately, and it will be the McLaren that pulls out ahead. I was expecting door-to-door.
Vinogradov is past Tully in the bus stop, with
Yes,
Tully having gone a little bit deep, almost stalling the car there. Going very, very slow out of the bus stop, or in the middle of the bus stop, and Vinogradov very easily got past there on the outside.
Yep, he has gone up from P17, is looking at a top 5 finish, and if he can catch up to Hearn, who is quite a ways up the road, we could be seeing P4, even P3 if he really catches Vischer, but that is quite a tall order, especially with 25.5 to go. We jump back here, Zinegar and Bonnefoy. The battle for P15 rages on right now. Bonnefoy in the slipstream. Does not get the best exit there out of Raidillon, so Zaneker will have a bit of breathing room to work with as we carry on down the Kemmel Straight. Definitely keeping an eye on this. Hausman right now falling lower and lower as Bouchard is caught up and is going to be looking to overtake this P8. Hausman doing everything he can right now, having to duck to the inside of the corner to try and hold on as best he can, but really seems to be struggling right now to hold positions. Of course, started P1, and, well, as an amateur class driver, I'm sure starting P1 with all those pro-ams and pros behind you is very intimidating.
Oh, for sure. Meanwhile, we've got Mullard in the chat advising Michaels to save fuel. Surely he hasn't done the same mistake twice. Surely that heartbreak in the first race has urged him to take a little bit more fuel for the second race.
Yep, and we see Bouchard almost punting Hausman off and has to get on the brakes, and that does bring Cairns and Dombrowski's up. So right now, this is a very tight battle for P8. Hausman is leading the charge, but you can probably bank on him not wanting to be in that position as you have two drivers in the same manufacturer behind you. You'd think they'd be there for support, but not quite. We go door to door in the background there. Down the inside is Cairns, who does pick up, or doesn't pick up, actually ends up losing a position. Hausman right now is going to give this position away to Bouchard, who does get the corner a bit better, and as I say that, he goes into the rear left corner panel, and into the back of him is Ippolito. Oh, it was looking great, looking like a very solid battle, but unfortunately the touch, and Bouchard, instead of sitting in P8, is actually sitting in P13 with a long line of McLarens in front of him, 4 of them in fact.
And I'll tell you what, we've got something else that's quite exciting right now. Where is Michaels? Michaels has left the server. Michaels is disconnected, just as he's been told to save fuel. Maybe a little bit of a code word to his PC to lose connection. But there we go. Michaels, after the heartbreak in the first race, has lost connection in the second race.
Yeah, it's always unfortunate to see. Probably gonna just take some time and get ready for not next week, but the 2 weeks from now at COTA. We did see Cuthbert push on through Hausman, so that's a top 10 there for the Scott. Hausman, although, is starting to come under fire right now. Ippolito, despite that front end damage, is going to be looking for a move down the inside here, and will not get the job done quite yet. Does have to back out momentarily, but he's going to get a better exit out of the corner, and he is clear. So Hausman losing more and more positions as this race carries on, and he's still got 22 minutes left on the clock, and it's going to feel like 22 hours.
Oh, if you're out in the lead for sure. If you're back, maybe out of position, maybe one of the faster drivers that has had some bad luck in the first race or some bad luck in this race and is back trying to make up as many positions as possible. Those 22 minutes do not feel like they're going to be long enough. You want this race to go on forever so you can make up all those positions. And speaking of making up positions, we have Zineke right now going past Mazurier. And we have really a really big little train from P11 down to P17 right now. From Ippolito down to Mazurier. And surely we're going to see a bunch of battles going on in this little train. And we've also got quite a bit of damage in this train. It's tough to find a single car in this train that hasn't got a little bit of damage. Let's see, Barlow definitely looks relatively unscathed. Bonfoy, nope, definitely some damage on the front there. Zineke also looks unscathed. Oh, meanwhile, Mazurier, what's happened here? I think we've just lost the rear of the train through.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
Just barely caught that one.
I'm gonna have to have a closer look at that one.
Looked like a little too wide there on the AstroTurf.
It looked like we tried to go through wide through. Yes, there we go.
I thought they fixed
Mazurier
the
and
Audi
Zineke.
tanks.
Mazurier and Zineke trying to go too wide through Blanchimont. And there was no contact. It was very close, but both of the drivers left each other just enough space. But Mazurier maybe a little bit too long on the brakes, or maybe a little bit too much steering input while on the brakes, and that car is gone right away. And it was a relatively minor touch into the left wall, but still some decent damage for sure, and a lot of time lost.
Yep, Bouchard getting around Houseman, so the McLaren just falling lower and lower on the grid. We have McConnell into the pits, surprisingly. I wonder if that might be
we've had something big in Puhan right now. Paffett has returned to the pits. We've also got some other cars that have gone into Paffett while he was stationary in the middle of Puhan.
Oh, he just loses it
on his own.
And then, oh god, he's in the absolute worst spot possible. Oh, backs up.
Oh, and he tries to go backwards.
Oh, and he picks up
tries
finding.
To go backwards. Yeah, he tries to go backwards to get out of the way, but someone else, can't tell you who that was, has already tried to go around the outside of him, which is, of course, the worst possible thing to happen if someone tries to evade and the car on the racing line tries to get out of the racing line as well. So there was that, and then also Vining, not able to react quick enough, just also unfortunately catches him.
Yeah, that's like the worst spot you can.
Let off.
It's the worst spot you can go off, and at the worst angle too. It's one thing if you spin and you're backwards. It's another thing if you're completely perpendicular to the track on the racing line at Puhan. I mean, that is an absolutely dangerous place to be. And we saw, I believe that was Fredrickson, who went for a very deep dive down the inside of Tully, but it's actually completely backfired, and that has brought the McLaren of Dombrowski's up very close. So, yeah, we're just seeing action all over the place. It's been quite the battles here for all of these drivers. It's been heartbreak for some, it's been joy for others, and we continue on in this race. Vischer right now has Vinogradov, who's done an amazing job and is caught up and is currently on track for a podium, because ahead of them is well, Hudson's way up the road, so Vinogradov at the very least could be picking up a podium, and picking things up is actually Cuthbert, who is going to find in the pile a 15-second penalty.
And Vinogradov behind Fischer is surely not going to stay there. I think, well, or at least he's not going to try to stay there, as we have Fischer going very wide in Puhan, losing a lot of speed, which might invite Vinogradov to try something around the outside of Piff Puff, and there we go. Fischer actually brakes before the corner to let Vinogradov through, says, no, I don't want any of this. I don't want to fight. Just go past me. You're faster anyway.
Yep.
As Fischer's fastest lap is a 20.5, Vinogradov's fastest lap is an 18.9, so a quite big pace difference there. Vinogradov just quickly putting on the hazards to say thank you to Fischer. There we go. And now Vinogradov is released to try to catch Hudson, but that's not going to be an easy mission to do, because it is 15 seconds between the two, with 17 seconds left in the race.
Well, we've got
Hudson is actually...
Oh boy.
Oh wow, okay.
Big front end damage.
Big.
If I had to bet on it, that is probably Puhan. Or probably, Raidillon damage. I mean, that was a lot of front end, a lot of back end damage. So the Frenchman is in the pits. So McConnell is out of the pit. So this is definitely going to be damage, definitely going to be a lot of time. But anyways, Houseman with Zenaker right now here for P15. Or sorry, P14 as the BMW goes through. So Husband just, man, it has not been a very kind day for him.
Oh, for sure. But same thing for Mazurier. I've just checked the incidents in Raidillon, and things have actually not looked too bad at the start of Eau Rouge and Raidillon. But at the end, coming over the inside curve of Raidillon, the car suddenly just bounces, suddenly gets unsettled, and he does not manage to catch it, overcorrects a tiny bit, and goes straight into the wall at 200 kilometers an hour.
Oof.
Maybe running a little bit, the car a little bit too low to the ground to catch a little bit of, well, to bottom out on that curb. But let's get back to you.
We see Dombrowski's right now firing it down the inside there at the end of the Camel Straight. P7, it's Fredrickson getting pushed back. So this is not good for the Aston Martin driver. Does have a pretty good gap down to Cairns, though. So for the time being, you can see Cairns, though, just popping up at the top of frame there for a moment. Could potentially hold on should things stay the way they are for the next 15.5 minutes. One thing I wanted to mention earlier with Vinogradov, like you said, he's been released. A 2 2:18.9 for Vinogradov is not his best, of course. He's been fighting his way through traffic, so with all this open air right now, in fact, about 13, maybe 14, 15 seconds of open air between himself and Hudson, who knows if he can pull out a miracle second place, but it's going to take quite a lot.
And Hudson is trying to catch Rumbouts at the same time. Now, Rumbouts, the last lap, was actually quite a lot faster compared to Hudson, was just about half a second. The fastest laps compared between the two, 2:18.015 for Rumbouts, at 2:18.020 for Hudson. So 5 thousandths slower, the fastest laps between those two drivers. Last lap, now we've completed another one, was just about 1.5 tenths for Rumbouts as well. So Rumbouts just a tiny bit faster right now in the last two laps than Hudson, but he's not going to give up that quickly for sure. It's 14 minutes left in this race, and with 5 seconds of a gap between two relatively similarly paced cars, things are definitely not done.
No, not by a long shot. These guys will always fight to the final flag, and we'll see that, of course. Right now, Tully is sort of losing pace here to Hearn. The last lap for the Irishman, a 2:20.17. Hearn at 2:19.5. So a very big gap there, over half a second as we head up through Eau Rouge. Raidillon, Honda, of course, very strong here. Aston Martin, I mean, it's a pretty solid car overall and will definitely benefit. But things have really calmed down for the most part, of course. Tully with the slipstream being given to Hearn as we go down into the Les Combes chicane, and Hearn will not go for a move just yet, maybe biding his time.
Yeah, I think this is going to be the one to watch right now. Other than that, the field is relatively far apart. I do see a little bit of a battle coming up between Boschert and Ippolito, possibly. With Boschert actually being a second faster on the last lap, so this might be something to watch. Yep. But yeah, Hearn already right on the back of Tully again, going into Pruhan, but doesn't manage to send it up the inside.
No, he will probably go for something as they head up towards Blanchimont, and if not there, then maybe into the bus stop, or heck, even onto the Kemmel Straight. We don't know what these plans are for these drivers. We sort of just exist and try to make our best educated guesses. Right now, Ippolito is really struggling to pull away from Boschard, who does actually have that inside line for a moment as we head into the chicane. It's the inside line, though, for Ippolito, who's going to try to defend, but as they get to the second half, he is not going to have the inside line. But the question is, how long does this door-to-door action continue on? Ippolito pulls out ahead, does get a better drive in for the time being, does hold on, does not get the best turn there into Stavolo, and that is going to give Boschard a chance to catch right back up, and onto the back straight we go with the slipstream. Boschard having to swing out to avoid rear-ending the Mercedes, and this is really, really heating up. Boschard does not want to give up quite yet. You can see just how close he is as we head here through Blanchimont and up towards the bus stop. Is he going to try to fire it down the inside? No, Ippolito is going to lay claim to that inside line, does not want to leave that door open, and perhaps not getting the best drive into the corner. A little bit of a crisscross here for both of these drivers. A bit of a wiggle there for Boschard out of the corner, but for now, it's the Italian who remains in P11.
These are the battles I've been looking forward to. And, I was about to say we might see something similar between Tully and Hearn right now, but Hearn goes very wide through Raidillon, or not quite close enough through, to Tully, so I'll keep you up to date if something develops there. But actually, Dombrowskis has now joined the battle, is now only 2 tenths behind Hearn, so it's now a battle from P5 to P7, not just between P5 and P6.
Yep, and then just behind them is Fredriksson, maybe banking on these three coming together and picking up 3 positions for very little effort, as Hearn does not get the best drive out of the corner there, and that does give Tully a bit of breathing room. Dombrowskis, though, just sticking to the back end of that Aston Martin. We check back with Ippolito, has managed to actually build maybe a tenth or so onto that gap. The last lap for Ippolito, a 23.2 and then a 22.2 for Boschard. But the thing is, that was with them battling a little door-to-door, so not indicative of what they can do. Although Ippolito's best lap is a 20.4, Bouchard a 21.5. So, yeah, I mean, last laps are always interesting to go off of, but then you look at their best laps and things don't quite look the same. And despite Tully having a chance to pull away, he's already had Hearn catch right back up.
Yeah, going just a little bit wide through Stabilo, maybe getting out of the gas a little bit to make sure he doesn't get a track limits warning. I've seen him go wide just a few times on these past few laps, so who knows, he may be very close on those track limit warnings. And Hearn does send it up the inside. There we go, takes the inside, Tully just about leaves enough space. Takes the inside for the second part of the bus stop, and Tully does manage to stay in front. But look at Dombrowskis, how close he is now to Hearn. Gap between Hearn and Tully has opened up. Dombrowskis now taking the outside, getting just barely alongside enough. Hearn breaking a good bit later, and there we go. Still managing to take the apex, and things stay as they are, or as they were.
Yeah, Dombrowskis was looking to go for a little bit of a switcheroo, although Hearn reading that perfectly, and like you said, he manages to get to the apex and completely shut the McLaren from actually doing anything as we head up and over the top of Raidillon once more. It is Dombrowskis on the back of Hearn. Hearn is trying to defend as best he can as we head down this back straight. It's going to be door-to-door. Hearn opting for that inside line down into Lake Coombe. Dombrowskis just backing out and slotting in behind. He is having a lot of trouble getting around Hearn, but if you're Tully, that's great news because, well, you can open up that gap, and look, Fredriksson's getting in on the party.
Yeah, this thing is growing bigger and bigger. Meanwhile, oh no, never mind, that's sharp behind Vinogradov, so nothing to see there. This four-way battle from P5 to P8, that is definitely where the action is right now.
Yep, and the 15-second penalty, by the way, for Cuthbert was a lap 1 collision penalty, so that's what that was all about. It looks like our penalty bot is back from vacation, so I hope you had a good long break. We do miss him dearly. It's always better than last season where we had to sort of guess what the penalty was.
For sure.
No disrespect, of course. No disrespect to the amazing coders who have to make these bots work in the Discord. So shout outs to them, of course, for all the hard work they do. It's been so much fun dealing with your shenanigans, and I'm sure you love dealing with us having to talk about how the bot doesn't work or something like that. But for right now,
Hearn
go ahead.
Is on the back of Tully again, going through Blanchimont right now. Does keep the throttle pinned, goes a little wide. As I said, really tricky to go through Blanchimont with dirty air. Tries to take the inside, but doesn't get quite far enough alongside. Now tries to make a big, take a big thing of, what's it called? There we go, no idea. But Tully does stay in front, going over the start-finish line. And once again, there's Dombrowskis going very, very close to the back of Hearn again. Meanwhile, Tully has gotten a little bit of a slow exit out of La Source. So now, these three, Dombrowskis, Hearn, Tully, all very, very close to one another, going through Eau Rouge. Also very tricky to go through here with dirty air, so let's see how that turns out. Dombrowskis does lift off just a little bit. And there we go. Actually, not who we expected. Fischer gets a drive-through penalty, or a 30-second penalty, for track limits. So he was not involved in that battle at all. He was comfortably sitting in P4, and he does, now after having gone through Eau Rouge Raidillon, gets that track limit penalty that shows up so often after you go through that corner combination at Spa.
Yeah, it's certainly not what you want. He's going to be falling way down this grid come the end of the race. We look back, though, Tully is just holding on by a thread for this P5. Fredriksson, again, with all the battling that's happening, he's able to catch right back up.
Oh, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if towards the end of this race we do see another drive-through penalty, or a 30-second penalty, breaking up this fight between these four, because I have seen quite a few. I've seen quite a few, big disregardings, if you will, of the track limits between these four. But so far, everyone's still apparently on, at most, their 3 warnings. Still very, very close to each other. We're gonna leave the camera on these 4 just for a bit, while we go out on the back straight. Fredriksson at the back does have to get out of that throttle as he goes just a little bit wide through Stavilo. But now Hearn once again quickly moving up, quickly catching on Tully. Does once again keep the throttle pinned. Yep, through Blanchimont. Does once again go wide, but apparently the automatic track limit stewards don't see too bad to that. There we go. Dombrowskis just barely goes into the back of Hearn, just gives him a little bit of a bump. Nothing big happened there, but Hearn is certainly not going to be too happy about that. And Tully, once again, manages to go actually quite far out in front and open up that gap before Rouge.
Yeah,
Fischer definitely got the gap down.
Yeah,
About 2 seconds slower last time compared to Tully.
We have to look back though right now. Ippolito still with Bouchard behind has really struggled to shake this Ferrari. It's been sort of a push and pull with both of these drivers being able to gain an advantage but losing it at some other point either during the same lap or the following, and it's been very close. Ooh.
Has gotten a much better run through Rouge and is, oh there we go, he is trying to be past Tully. He was ahead on the straights, but left that inside line open for Hearn, who has tried to send it up the inside, but hasn't managed to make it stick.
Nobody makes it around Hearn, no problem.
P6.
And Fredriksson, with that little battle, does catch up for the time being. Does remain on the back of the fellow Aston Martin. This is a top 10 finish. It looks like to be actually could possibly be maybe even like a P7 or so for Fredriksson, an amateur class driver. It's very impressive. The next highest AM driver is Zineka here in P14. So Fredriksson possibly on for a promotion during the break. And we've got...
I think Fischer. We've got Fischer. Oh, ho, ho. Having lost connection for a good 5 seconds there. Completely off the track, completely into the void. But apparently his connection has managed to stabilize itself again, and he is still in that P4. But that looked scary for a second to see, think about how he might lose a connection just then.
Yeah, I don't think...
on top of that 30-second penalty he's already gotten.
Yeah, I don't think lag switches work too well in sim racers. But for right now, Tully here is still dealing with Dombrowskis, who is, after getting around Hearn, has actually made up quite a lot of ground already. It seems like he's gotten around that one hurdle and is looking to get it around one, maybe another one here as we head through the bus stop chicane. Fischer losing quite a lot of time here and is struggling to just get any sort of pull out of that BMW. Last lap for Tully at 2:21.1. And then for Dombrowskis, a 2:20.5. So despite being caught up behind other drivers, he's made up quite a lot of time to the 82 Honda. And Bonfoy actually picking up a penalty here. 5 seconds for the time being. Could possibly be 10 once things get finalized. But for right now, Tully is just barely holding on to this P5. He's desperate for it. Actually, he'll be getting a little bit too much on the inside. Maybe trying to take a shorter line there at the top, and Dombrowskis will get around and actually flashing the headlights towards Fischer, saying, get out of the way, man. You've got a 30-second penalty. What is the use in fighting this? And behind them, Hearn and Fredriksson. This is...
All right, and there we go.
Coming down to the wire. Ippolito, again, still with Bouchard behind, even with that slipstream. I don't think he's going to be close enough to actually get something done. You can see just how close Dombrowskis is to the back of Fischer's car. He is trying viciously to get that position because he knows he'll get a P4 automatically, but he wants to get away from these other drivers behind because he knows the pace they have. Tully is really hurting right now as Hearn is hurting from that because he can't seem to get around this Honda as best he can, and Fredriksson's pulling in.
And Fischer, in the meantime, being more or less the cork in the bottle. Being, causing a sort of a conflict of interest right now between Fischer and Dombrowskis. Obviously not fighting for a position, but Dombrowskis wants to get past Fischer as quickly as possible to, there we go, and he does, to make sure he doesn't get backed into the cars that are following him. Meanwhile, Fischer, while he has that 30-second penalty...
Oh, Tully is spun. Tully has spun the Honda, and actually, is that Fredriksson getting caught in that? Oh,
that
no,
is
it is.
Yes.
Oh, and there goes Cairns, and then Cuthbert as well. What? This was So we see door to door here with Hearn and Tully. Tully goes wide. He barely touches the gravel. I mean, it is millimeters onto that gravel, and that just kicks the tail end out. And unfortunately, Fredrickson was in the wrong place at the wrong time and gets spun. Thankfully, is able to avoid a lot of damage, and he does get punched down into P10, but with Cuthbert and Vischer with those penalties, he could be picking up a couple of positions, but not the way you want this race to end, and I'm sure the stewards are going to have a nice long look at that one.
Yeah, that is an unfortunate end to this wonderful battle train we've been watching here. But it's going to make the end of the race, once again, pretty exciting for our stewards to judge what has happened there. What are we seeing there in the meantime?
Hearn getting around Vischer.
That's Fischer getting out of the throttle just a little bit to let Hearn pass. Now Fischer, he has that 30-second penalty, so the cars immediately behind him are obviously essentially past him already, but he still does not want to lose too much time to hang on to as many positions as possible. Now, I'm not exactly sure how it looks 30 seconds behind him, but he still wants to get the fastest laps possible, so he can hang on to as many positions as possible. So he's not going to be happy having to give up those positions. Oh, what have we here? The number 30 disqualified for speeding in the pit lane, McConnell.
Oh.
How is that up?
That is strange. I've never seen that before. Maybe just forgot to put on the pit limiter. But, ladies and gentlemen, we gotta look back up. It's a new addition here to the Simrigs Sprint Series. Bounce getting out of the final corner is gonna pick up a race win, and as best it looks like, will also be picking up the fastest lap here on the final lap of the race. Managed to avoid some carnage at the start and will absolutely make that something that can be used in a very productive manner. Behind them, Hudson is going to improve, and, well, Vinogradov from 17th is going to pick up a podium. What a drive from him.
That is absolutely impressive. There comes Dambrauskas through the bus stop, picking up P4 with Hearn just behind him for P5. And then we're going to have to calculate what the penalty for Fischer is going to be, but on track he does come across in P6. I can quickly tell you, McConnell in the pits, he has entered the pits with around 105 kilometers an hour.
Oh, that's
now
pretty
that
fast.
is a lot. That is a lot of speed to be carrying into the pits, but it's a bit harsh to automatically disqualify him from the game. But that's what happens.
Yep, so Hearn coming through, Vischer, Cairns, Tully, Cuthbert, 15 seconds. That's going to be fun to figure out. Fredrickson will absolutely be getting a top 10 as we see the McLaren doing some donuts. Ippolito has held off the challenging Belgian here in home field for him. P12, P13, Bonfoy with 5 seconds. Sneaker behind might be enough to hold on to that P13. Barlow, Berger, Hausman with that 10 seconds of penalties. I believe should hold on to that from Perkins. So across the line he goes. He has not had the best race, going from P1 down to P17. That is very, very rough. And then Shop, Zelmansky, McConnell here is coming around, and then Mazoria. What just a heartbreaking afternoon for the Frenchman, involved in accidents, getting stuck behind drivers, and unfortunately is going to be getting the worst position imaginable for him. Cross the line and rounds it out. But man, it has been quite an evening of action.
I'll tell you, I'm liking this season so far. I haven't been disappointed in these first 2 rounds. That's
it's been very
so much
exciting.
action, so many curveballs in the middle of different races. And, well, 3 different winners in 3 different races.
Yeah, we actually have to wait for Zelmansky, unless he's just going to park it up. Yeah, he's done. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be race number 2 done and dusted here for the Simrigs Sprint Series, who, of course, we do have to give another shout out to very quickly. Sim Racing Needs, you know what they've got, and they've got it for you. If you're a Patreon member, 5% off your order. the next time you put something in the cart, of course, servicing all of Australia and New Zealand. And if you live outside those borders, well, email is the way to go. They'll get you covered. But we're going to take a quick peek here at the timing sheet. So for race number 1 overall, it is Chris Vining on top, and then it's her and Hudson on the top 3 in the Pro-Am category. Dombrowskis, Cuthbert, and Balchard will make their way onto their respective podiums. Amateur class, Zinaker, Barlow, and Hausman for amateur, and then Silver, Zelmansky, and Shop. These 2 drivers will be getting a rating here during the bye week. And we go into race number 2 overall. It's Rumbouts there in a nice, good position. Hudson P2 and Vinogradov fighting back up from P17 to make it onto the podium. The bronze medal for him, and Fredrickson should absolutely be counted here, managing to get P8. So I will not be surprised if we see a promotion possibly up into Pro-Am for this driver later on. Cuthbert, Vischer, Bonfoy, 11, 12, and 13 for them, and Berger getting P17 with his. So Vischer actually not getting pushed down quite as far as I thought. But we move over to Pro-Am. It's Rumbouts, Dombrowskis, and Cairns with the top 3. And amateur, of course, Fredrickson, Zinaker, Barlow, Silver, Shop, and Zelmansky. And then, of course, we have our safety car. But, Simon, that is it for tonight. And what an evening we had here.
That's the reverse grid rounds for you. That's the super sprints, and that's also Spa for you. And not only that, we've also seen, I think, our field of wonderful drivers is making a big contribution too, because we've seen some similar excitement and some similar chaos in the first race of the season. So the next one is going to be what? Kota?
Yep.
Well, I think Kota, while it does have a lot of runoff and all that stuff, Koja is definitely not an easy track to get around either, and I think Kota once again might invite a little bit of chaos, so I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we've got some time. It's going to be a bye week here for these drivers, so 2 weeks to practice and 2 weeks for our lovely stewards and race staff to get some promotions underway for both or for all of our regions, AP, EU, and NA. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for us tonight here at Spa-Francorchamps. We'll be back in 2 weeks for Circuit of the Americas. On behalf of myself, Simon Bauer, and everybody here at Octane Online Racing, we'd like to thank you so much for your support as always. And of course, thanks again to Simrigs for sponsoring this Sprint Series Season 11. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, stay beautiful, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Dark wave. Break it down. Dark wave.